Okay, we're going to think about the purpose of your research project so you can write that out, the purpose statement and the significance of it. What you really have to ask yourself is what new product do you want to have when you're done? What do you want people to get their hands on and how do you want them to use it? Do you want a visual model that explains the way the world works, or do you want a curriculum to be developed or a plan, or do you want an ethnography that describes how people are, or a biography of certain important um, figures in your research interest? Now you're limited in what you can actually produce. I'm sorry to say that you cannot actually produce a document with the new knowledge of how to effectively plant a church in Muslim context, for instance, because there is no answer out there of the effective way, or you cannot produce um, the new knowledge on the right way to be a leader in a certain context, or the right way to be a follower in a certain context. That kind of knowledge is not out there to be gotten. In other words, the right way to do something, um, is really not attainable. And you may be able to do a theological study on something, but that's not really what we do in social science research. So instead, the kind of new knowledge you're going to get has to be gotten from human beings. So I know you might want a product out there that says, the right way to teach cross-culturally or something, but you're not going to be able to attain that uh, in the end. You're going to only be able to attain what human beings can help you understand. Now, any of those things could be reframed in a way that where you can get the information from human beings. So you could find out, if ways that people are effectively planting churches um, in the Muslim context, or approaches toward cross-cultural teaching, or a model of certain approaches toward leadership. So you can learn an awful lot from humans, but you're not going to be able to produce at the end the right way to do something. Instead, you're trying to understand the way that people do things and why they do them the way they do. So we're going to look at some different options, and you see which one jumps out at you as, yeah, that's the kind of product I want. That's the point in me doing my research. Okay, the first example, maybe you want to understand the relationship between X and Y. Let's say you want to know the relationship between education and happiness. Okay, does having an education make you happier? You're not doing a quantitative study where you can prove that one is correlated with the other, but you want to know what is the implication or the role of education on happiness? What are the effects of education on happiness? Or that would be an example of a relationship between X and Y. Now, if you don't even know what causes happiness, you don't even want to start with the notion that education leads toward happiness. You just want to find out what are the factors that contribute to happiness. Then you're looking at a relationship between unknown factors and Y. And so again, you're trying to study a relationship between something and something else. The relationship between, um, uh, it, income and success in college, or something like that. So you're trying to see factors that influence something, and then your product would end up. You may have some sort of visual model that shows a flow chart that say these are the effects, these are the influencers, these are the factors, and so you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever boxes pointing toward one central a phenomenon that has been influenced by others. And typically you would generate that visual model through a grounded theory. Okay, instead of understanding relationships between one and another, you might be interested more in understanding strategies for improving healthcare in East Africa, or for developing a children's ministry in the United States, or techniques for ministering to members in jail. And so, again, you're not finding out the right way or the wrong way to do it. You are understanding the way that human beings are actually involved in these things. And you're going to look at where these are done, and you're going to answer. Here's how I understand the way that chaplain ministry is done in the in jail settings, or here's the way that youth ministry is done. There's 3 or 4 techniques, or 5 or 6 approaches, or whatever. And so, in the end, you have some sort of holistic plan or curriculum, and maybe your method is action reflection. You're not bound by that, but I'm just trying to give some examples. Let's say you want to understand just what makes people tick. What's their identity? What's their self-understanding? What's their history? What are their values, their norms, their beliefs, their practices? And so really that's kind of what we do in anthropology. It's a ethnography of a people. You want to know, you want to understand the worldview of, a certain church, a certain people group. So your product would be an ethnography. Okay, and now you may want to understand the degrees or extent that people experience a phenomenon. What are the different ways that people experience conversion? What are the different types of suffering that cancer patients feel? And what. So instead of just a relationship of what seems to lead to the suffering, or what are factors that influence healing, for instance, or influence conversion, that would be a relationship of X on Y. But in this case, it's what are the range? What are the different types of experiences people have within a certain phenomenon? What does it mean to be an African American in LA? And what's the continuum or approaches or extent of that experience? And so it recognizes a multiplicity of responses. It doesn't just reduce people to one, to say that everybody experiences it the same way. Instead, you want to understand it in its complexity. All right, maybe you want to understand the process. What is it like to go through this? And that's really a phenomenology. It could be a grounded theory. It could be a visual model that shows stages or phases or transitions. You'd have to avoid the temptation to fit everybody into that box, but this is kind of like understanding the different approaches or the different extents. But nonetheless, I give it a different slide because a number of qualitative studies have tried in the end to create some sort of theory that describes sequences or passages, transitions that people experience. Here is what it's like to become an adult in the United States, and you go through an adolescent rebellion phase, and not everyone does, but it is a stage that is out there recognizable. If I described it, you'd know what rebellion looked like, even if you didn't go through it. And so that would be one of the phases leading to adulthood in the United States, for instance. So these are your options or some of your options for thinking through what product do you want, what kinds of questions are you going to ask, who are you going to ask, how are you going to get that answer, what new knowledge do you want to generate.